Good evening, Mr. Creutzmann. Welcome. And today we talk about the online gambling in the internal market. And my first question is, industry representatives claimed that politicians all too often submit positions without having a full picture of the technical background, the possibilities and challenges for online gambling. So what are your views on this?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to have a very warm welcome to Malta, because I know for online gambling, Malta is a big issue. A lot of companies, of operators are working there, are living there. And that's why I would like to tell you a few things about that. In our political work, we very often have to deal with extremely technical subjects. In order to form a well-founded opinion, it is absolutely necessary to talk to experts. This is why I always try to meet a wide range of stakeholders. Certainly, stakeholders tend to focus on the information that best serves their interests. That's clear, but it's still very useful. In the end, what is the best for the European citizens remains up to my political judgment. The debate on online gambling is always very emotional. But there are always many unfounded prejudices about the industry. It really pays off to go and visit online gambling companies and see how they operate in practice. I was very impressed by the high security standards when I went to see a company's office in London. I have also seen one in Gibraltar, very high standards, and it seems to me you have also very high standards in Malta.
Okay. So this EP resolution calls on Commission action in certain fields, like protecting of vulnerable players such as children or addicted gamblers. The EP also adopted 2 other resolutions in the past, including one adopted under your leadership, which also call for closer Commission scrutiny and action in this field. So do you think that the Commission can afford to wait much longer before proposing legislative measures specific to online gambling?
Personally, I'm convinced that soft law will not be enough to ensure greater coherence between member states' regulatory models. If you really want to protect consumers and fight fraud effectively across national borders, we will need a common legislative framework for online gambling. Nevertheless, the member states are still reluctant. Especially those who seek to protect their state monopolies are afraid that European legislation on gambling will be a first step towards liberalisation. This fear is completely unfounded. Commissioner Barnier has emphasised many times that member states are free to decide how they organise their gambling markets. They have nothing to fear from the EU as long as they stick to some basic rules. This means their gambling legislation must keep to the EU treaty principles of consistency, transparency and equal treatment. At least the Commission has announced to assess if additional legislative measures need to be taken after 2 years. I'm hopeful that the Commission will come to the conclusion then that we will need to go one step further.
Okay, thank you. So the EP resolution seems to balance between possibly radically protectionist views on the one hand and more liberal views on the other hand, as expressed at committee level. Can we say the final outcome reflects the delusion of extremes into a generally acceptable but overall not incisive text?
Yes. The debate in the Parliament was again very polarized and influenced by different national cultures and traditions. Both the state monopolies and the private online gambling providers have extremely strong lobbies in Brussels, and they know exactly who to talk to in order to get their messages across. The discussions were a bit more difficult because of a different political constellation in the committee. As you may know, the rapporteur, Ashley Fox, is a British Conservative who also represents Gibraltar, the home of many private online gambling companies who benefit from low tax rates there. Consequently, he would support a far-reaching liberalisation of online gambling in the internal market. On the other extreme, we had the shadow rapporteurs of the two major political groups, largely supported by the Greens and the Communists. Mrs. Pietikäinen from the EP basically defended the Finnish gambling monopoly, and Mrs. Schaldemose from the S&D stayed true to the restrictive line from their own report from 2009. As a shadow rapporteur of the ALDE group, I found myself in an intermediate position. It wasn't easy to reconcile the divergent positions of a great left-wing coalition on the one hand and a market liberal rapporteur on the other hand. But I have to congratulate my colleague, Mr. Fox, for his enormous efforts to find compromises, to make the text more concise and to keep a cool head throughout the difficult negotiations. The final result is still less concise than the rapporteur would have liked it to be. The report is also less balanced than my own report, the so-called Creutzmann report 2 years ago. You can see it quite clearly when you just have a look in the distribution of the space. But the section on consumer protection and the fight against illegal operators is 3.5 pages long. The section on compliance with EU law takes only 1 page. Nevertheless, the report includes many good ideas, and I believe that the result is as good as it gets under those difficult conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.